Well, nearly 3,000 pilots from 12 international airlines have now joined a class action against Boeing. Led by an Australian law firm, pilots are seeking to recover more than $360 million in lost income and damage as a result of the 737 MAX grounding. Joining us now is Sky News aviation expert and former commercial and RAAF fighter pilot Byron Bailey. Byron, good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. What do you think their chances are of success here?
Good morning, Pete. I think they have a very good chance of success. Litigation is a big industry in America, and if you want to sue someone, that is the place to do it. But this is just international pilots so far, and of the nearly 1,000 planes produced, 400 were sold. It affected an awful lot of pilots. Some have lost their jobs, some have lost income. But they're really aggrieved at Boeing's conduct. Boeing hid the fact that this aircraft was not safe, that it never really passed certification. Boeing bent the rules slightly to get the aeroplane into service, and subsequently we're finding out that there was a lot of bad stuff going on. So the pilots are really serious about taking Boeing on, and I think it'll go for a long time. Some of the American airlines, I believe, bought quite a few of the Boeing 737 MAX. Some of their pilots may step in as well. This could really end up a world of hurt for Boeing, especially when the airlines themselves have lost a lot of money. They step into the fray as well. So I don't know where it's going to end up, but Boeing is not looking good at this stage.
Well, I mean, presumably there would be Australian pilots involved in this too, Byron, right? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Virgin Australia, didn't they have the MAX 737s on order as well, and they had to be grounded? Absolutely,
yes. So Virgin wouldn't have laid off those pilots, but they probably would have employed them still on their previous Boeing 737s. But, yeah, I think perhaps those pilots have a case, but I'm not sure Virgin would like their guys taking on Boeing because it would look bad for Virgin. And the pilots that are involved, the 3,000 international pilots, their names are being kept out of this because they fear some backlash from the industry.
So that's basically, is that, Byron, is that what their case is based on? You know, 3,000 pilots there, that the planes were grounded, they don't have work, so it's lost earnings is what they're suing for?
No, that's only part of it. Part of it is the fact that they were not properly trained to fly this unsafe aeroplane. They weren't told that the aeroplane was unsafe, and they were actually at risk when they were flying the aeroplane.
Yeah.
I mean, as we found out later on, this is the only airliner that's entered service where the horizontal stabiliser, which is controlled by the autopilot, cannot be counted fully by the pilot with the elevator. And that means it's actually an unsafe aeroplane.
Well, I mean, when you put it like that, I mean, I'm no expert in these matters, but when you put it like that, Byron, it's hard to see how they would lose this.
Oh, they're not going to lose, but I think the government will have to step in and bail Boeing out because this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar ongoing case.
Yeah, I mean, I was a reporter and I got sent to that Lion crash in Jakarta last year, and that was one of those two big incidents. The other one over in Ethiopia. Massive stories. What was that about, Byron? Can you explain that simply? I mean, the investigation, I believe, is still going on. Was that about, you know, a new system where pilots weren't trained properly and they didn't have the experience to be able to override these problems?
Well, it's not that they just weren't told about this new system. See, what happened was during the certification, they found that basically it was because the tail of the aeroplane, the horizontal stabiliser, volume wasn't big enough for the fact you had bigger engines further forward, change the centre of gravity and the aerodynamic characteristics. As a result, it couldn't actually pass the certification. And so the engineers and aerodynamicists come up with a software fix, and they installed this thing called MCAS, Manoeuvring Characteristics Augmentation System, that would work when the pilots were flying and at high angles of attack, it would push the nose down. But the problem is they only use one sensor, which is crazy. You need to have a backup. And the fact is that once it worked and then the pilots overrode it, and sorted it out, it would then keep reoccurring and reoccurring, and it was just a crazy situation. And that's why 348 people died in those two crashes.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrific. Byron, it's hard to see how Boeing survives this, right? So they've got this class action against them at the moment that's involving the pilots, as we've just been talking about. But you've also got the family members of victims that are suing Boeing as well. Then, you know, you've got the headwinds that the airline is facing now, because who's going to want to buy these planes and who's going to want to fly in them? I know I wouldn't.
I know. Perhaps they can scrap the ones that they already had in service and sell the engines.
But is this the end? Could this conceivably be the end of Boeing?
No, because Boeing is too big to fail. It has enormous tentacles into defence industry, fighter aircraft production, missiles, the whole 9 yards. So airline production is just part of it, but it sure has damaged the Boeing brand. It's very sad indeed.